The committee will come to order. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the House Committee on Community Safety, Justice, and Reentry. Today is March 1st, 2024. The committee is convening today to take executive action on Initiative 2113 related to police pursuits. I will ask the staff to give a briefing, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, this is Corey Patton, staff to the committee. As a reminder, House Initiative 2113 is the initiative that relates to the statewide regulations on vehicular pursuits conducted by peace officers. As a brief reminder, the initiative makes two changes to the current statewide regulations. First, it expands authorization for vehicular pursuits by allowing an officer to conduct a vehicular pursuit where there is a reasonable suspicion that a person has violated the law. This is in contrast to current law, which only allows pursuits for specific enumerated offenses in statute. Second, the initiative modifies the risk assessment for engaging in vehicular pursuits by providing that an officer may only engage in the pursuit if the person being pursued poses a threat to the safety of others and the safety risks of failing to apprehend or identify that person are considered greater than the safety risks of the pursuit under the circumstances. This is in contrast to current law, which employs a similar risk assessment, but instead requires that the subject of the pursuit pose a serious risk of harm rather than a threat. There are two amendments to the initiative.
Thank you. Yes, the chair notes that there are two amendments posted to the electronic bill book, and yet the chair raises a point of order at this time. Pursuant to Joint Rule 16, no amendments are permitted to initiatives to the legislature, and so the chair hereby rules those two amendments out of order. So there's no need to brief those amendments, and we will not take executive action on them. Any questions about the initiative itself for staff? I think we're pretty familiar with it, and so we will take just about 5 or 10 minutes. Let's take 9 minutes. How about that? And we'll come back at 9:20. So we are at ease in recess for caucus. The committee will come back to order. The committee is now in executive session, and the chair will entertain a motion from the vice chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that Initiative 2113 be reported out of committee with a due pass recommendation.
Second. It's been moved and seconded that House Initiative 2113 be reported out with a due pass recommendation. Remarks? The chair recognizes Representative Graham.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to my esteemed members. This has been definitely a long time coming, and I think that it's a wonderful process that democracy is unfolding right in front of our eyes at the People's House, and now in a position where they can literally be watching this take place. I'm thrilled, to see that the people's voice is being heard, and I'm looking forward to where this moves next. And I'm definitely supporting this.
Thank you. Further remarks? Chair recognizes the vice chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So last year, I voted for Senate Bill 5352, which gave the police more discretion when they were going to engage in a vehicular pursuit. I want to say, there is no perfect answer right now today. I know that people are leaving crime scenes because they feel empowered because of the messaging around this whole process for the last 3 years. And I want to also say that I do value law enforcement. I value especially my sheriff, who I care deeply for, and one of the deputies who actually I've gone on ride-alongs with some of them. One of them is actually mentoring my son, who's going to become a police officer. And so I do value our police officers. But I also grew up in the Black community, and I have 2 Black sons, and I've been very proximate to the racial profiling that does happen. It does happen. It's not just a statistic. I've seen it I've been walking down the street with my partner at the fair, and law enforcement comes up and, questions us for no reason. My older son was profiled and stopped for no reason. He had no violations of law. So I know that it happens. It's not just a statistic. We had this hearing on Wednesday, and I wasn't decided on how I was going to vote at that time. But when we watched the hearing and we saw that this initiative doesn't align with best practices, national best practices, and when we heard that there was new research came out this week around the increase in police discretion, increases racial profiling, and that Black people are 4 times more likely to die in vehicular pursuits. Those things, really resonated with me. And so I tried to amend this initiative to make sure that we did have balance in it. And unfortunately, because it's an initiative, we are not able to amend it, make any changes to it. So I am going to be a no today. And I just want to say I understand both sides, but I know that I have to do the right thing. And for me, I have to do the right thing for me, even though I know this is going to pass. Thanks.
Thank you. Further remarks? Chair recognizes Representative Griffey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. All 3 of my sheriffs came to that hearing that the good gentle lady talked about. All 3 of my sheriffs come from very diverse backgrounds. All 3 of my sheriffs believe that the actions this legislature took emboldened criminal behavior, and they are absolutely desperate to turn that around. The greatest benefit by the passage of this and it being signed into law, other than that all political power is inherent in the people, is that we're going to telegraph through the media, I hope, that it's not okay to run. You better stop, and you better face like an adult, the jeopardy you might be in because you committed the crime. I think the best part of passing this, the best thing that can happen is we're going to tell Washingtonians that law enforcement are going to have the tools to look at what you're doing. They're going to be able to pursue, and they're going to be able to hold you accountable. Washingtonians really need law enforcement to be able to be proactive in policing and stop crime before we have more crime victims. With that, I'm going to vote yes, and I thank the committee for this.
Thank you for your remarks. Chair recognizes Representative Farvar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as I did last year on this topic, I will be voting no on this initiative. I think it's important to note that I'm deeply disappointed that we are back here to rehash this topic for the 3rd time in 4 years now, and again without the data we need about what's happening in Washington State. I believe standing up against this initiative is the right thing to do for my district, for my siblings of color, for the families who have lost loved ones to pursuits, and that shows up in multiple ways. We're talking about the individual who's being pursued, the bystander, and the law enforcement as well. I'm thinking of people like Yosia Falatogo, who was killed in my district. I'm thinking of Giovanni Joseph McDade, both who were being pursued and killed in that process. And I'm thinking of bystanders like Charity Alex, Dana Provencher, and David Harder, who their lives are forever changed because of the troubling actions that were taken on those days. And I'm also thinking about the officers, including 2 officers from Thurston County that were injured just last month in pursuits. There's no way around it. Pursuits are inherently dangerous, and that's why we made these changes in the first place. We understood that lives were being put at risk when they didn't need to. For nonviolent offenses, we understood that there are other tools to hold folks accountable, and I believe the legislature did strike the right balance in 2021 when we made those changes. During the hearing, we learned a number of things. One of the things that's already been mentioned today is that our current law more closely reflects best practices, and the initiatives does not. That's really scary for me. We also heard that there were situations where law enforcement, it seemed that they could have pursued and they didn't, and it's unclear why they didn't pursue. We also learned that there is more and more data coming out as we go. Some really shocking facts we learned from a report I think that came from San Francisco is that over a 3-year period that they studied, 3,300 individuals were killed because of police pursuits, and that includes over 500 bystanders. We also learned what the vice chair shared, which is that Black Americans are 4 times as likely as white Americans to be killed in pursuits. These are really, really shocking data points that I think we need to take really seriously here. I'm deeply concerned about this initiative because it changes 2 very important standards and it leaves it up to law enforcement discretion. And while I am concerned, I do find some relief in that it doesn't change everything. It doesn't change the balancing test, the supervision or communication requirements, or the training requirements around this. And it also doesn't change or doesn't require that jurisdictions that have more restrictive policies, like the city of Seattle that I'm in, doesn't require them to change anything. I take some relief in that. I think that there are very real consequences of our actions here, and I know that nobody here takes that for granted, but decisions like these weigh very heavy on me. And I think about all of the lives that have been lost and our role here today to be able to really look at the facts presented to us and make a good decision for the people of Washington. And for those reasons, and for the reasons that I worry that this isn't going to solve all the issues that we are seeking to solve here. I worry that we're ultimately going to do more harm than good. And I ask the committee for a no vote.
Thank you for your remarks. Chair recognizes the ranking member.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for all your thoughtful and kind comments regarding your thoughts on this issue. I'm an enthusiastic yes. I think for many reasons, while I understand and my heart's broken for families that have had situations such as the good gentlelady has talked about, we also have families on the other side, Amber Goldate's daughter, for example, who's no longer with us, and her friend that was lifelong tragically harmed by not pursuing. So I feel like we have to do this. We have to give law enforcement their power back. They are trained to do the balance test. If it's safer to pursue, they can now pursue. If it's not safer, they'll make the decision. I have faith in them to not pursue and to keep the public safe. I think they're the ones who run into danger. We're the ones who run out. So I think we have to trust their instincts. I don't know any law enforcement officer who doesn't want to keep us safe. And I think if nothing else, it's been really valuable to have this conversation over the last 4 years or so to try to bring out concerns that you have and things that we need to look at. It's always good to shine a light on issues that we have concerns about. One of the biggest and greatest things is that the people have spoken. We're elected to be here to listen and to hear what the people have to say, to represent them. And with over 400,000 signatures, people that were out in the hot sun and cold, windy days trying to get signatures to explain and to educate the public on where we're at on pursuit and why their crime in their neighborhood is rising. We're last, as we've heard so many times this session and the session before, in the amount of law enforcement officers per capita. We have to fix that. I feel like by passing this bill, it will be a step forward. It'll help us fix that. The morale of law enforcement over the last few years has dropped. If we couldn't do what we need to do our jobs here, it would be similar to what we've done for law enforcement. We've said, here's the training. Thank you for risking your life every day, but we're going to put limits on you that may make you more in danger. So I'm thrilled that we're here. I'm grateful for all the dialogue. I'm grateful for this journey. It's been very helpful, enlightening. I don't think that we're done. I think we need to really pay attention to data and watch closely, to watch crime go back down, hopefully, watch less cars be stolen, and just having law enforcement to watch them drive off. I think this is a step forward, and I'm grateful to all my colleagues and their thoughtful consideration of this legislation before we vote. I highly recommend a yes vote.
Thank you for your remarks. So on my behalf, I will be supporting this measure, but with trepidation. I am encouraged that many of the provisions of the measure we passed last year, which was my striking amendment, are preserved. The requirement for emergency vehicle operation training, the requirement for supervisory oversight, the requirement of planning to end the pursuit, the requirement of adjacent jurisdictions to be in communication, the requirement to be prepared to use alternative measures such as spike strips or the pit maneuver. So those are all still in the initiative, and that was never in the law before last year, and so I'm encouraged that that remains. The major change, of course, is opening up the possibility of pursuit for any violation of law. This gives law enforcement wide discretion. I do trust, in general, that law enforcement will use their discretion not to endanger the public, but to apprehend suspects who are clearly a threat to public safety. There will probably be differences across the state, and we may see some unfortunate injuries or deaths, and I hope not. But on balance, I am supporting this and will be watching it closely, and I hope that we don't have to come back again. But we do need to protect public safety, but we also do need to protect the public in general from police interactions with the community. So it seems like there's a diversity of views here, so I think we're going to have a roll call vote on this. That will conclude the remarks. So if the staff could bring up the Standing Committee report and please call the roll.
Goodman.
Representative Goodman votes aye.
Rep. Goodman votes aye. Simmons.
No, do not pass.
Rep. Simmons votes nay, do not pass. Musbrucker.
Musbrucker votes aye.
Rep. Musbrucker votes aye. Griffey. Aye. Rep. Griffey votes aye. Davis. Rep. Davis votes aye. Farivar.
Farivar, no, do not pass.
Rep. Farivar votes nay, do not pass. Fossey.
Fossey, aye.
Rep. Fossey votes aye. Graham.
Representative Graham votes aye.
Rep. Graham votes aye. Ramos.
Ramos votes aye.
Rep. Ramos votes aye.
Thank you for your votes. Do any members wish to change or adjust their votes? Hearing none, will the clerk please report the record?
Mr. Chair, you have 7 ayes, 2 nays, 0 excused or absent.
Thank you. By your vote, the House Community Safety Committee reports out Initiative 2113 with a do pass recommendation. That concludes our business for the day. Thank you very much for your attention to these issues, and we are hereby adjourned.